Hey everybody, and welcome to an overview of Clevr. My name is Darryl Denyes, and today with me I have Dave Giroux. And the two of us will be leading a bit of an overview of Clevr and specific attention to a couple of Clevr solutions that we've built. So Clevr is an online workflow reporting solution that districts across Canada are currently using. So we have about 140 school districts from coast to coast in Canada. And that ranges from a provincial-wide implementation in Nova Scotia to about a dozen in British Columbia and every province in between, including about 14 Ontario school districts. We have over 3,000 integrated forms and solutions in the Clevr platform. And today we're really going to focus on the literacy and language acquisition solution. Just before we dive into that, just a bit of an overview of the various solutions that are in flight and districts are using right now. And they range from professional development and growth, which is TPA, principal growth plans, senior leadership improvement planning and monitoring. We do a lot of work in the area of school health and safety with mental health, casework tracking, VITRAs. I'm not going to list them all or read them all that are listed here, but we also do a lot of work specifically in Ontario around equity and inclusion with special education, case management with clinical services staff. Today's focus is really going to be in this solution area of student learning and achievement with an emphasis on the literacy and language acquisition solution that we've been working with. So this breaks down some of the details around our language acquisition solution from data collection. So Clevr is an online, very dynamic forms tool that you can have with you anytime on a phone, mobile device, tablet, Mac, all different devices Clevr is very compatible with. And the workflow within the Clevr forms allows across the organization for a teacher in a classroom to fill out a form in real time, and then the principal would get notification of something that he or she needs to be aware of, but also central office teams have direct access to that information as well. And that can be tiered intervention around tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 interventions in a class, school, and with individual students. And all the data that's in there can be combined and looked at in a number of different ways. Individual student profiles, class profiles, and district level decision-making reports that really help with resource allocation. So we're going to drill into this language and literacy acquisition solution today. And the project that we're going to be referencing is one that we started with the Hastings and Prince Edward District School Board last spring, April, May 2021. And the Hastings team was doing and still are doing a lot of really good things around data collection, screening, and regular monitoring, tracking, and responding to the needs of students. And they're using a variety of tools like Empower, but they really had pockets of excellence happening in various schools, and they were collecting that data not in an enterprise way. So even though they were collecting good information that informed where the students were and where they needed to go next in their instructional journey, they really had to touch the data set several times. They had to build the class list in a spreadsheet. They had to add the grades manually, and they were collating class lists like this on a Google Sheet. This is another one of the tools that they were using around early literacy screening. And again, same concept, some really good pedagogy happening in individual pockets around the district, but it wasn't coming together yet as an integrated enterprise solution. They're also doing a fair bit of work with the work of David A. Kilpatrick with the phonological screener. And also they built their own internal tool in collaboration within the district, and a few other districts work with them around letter recognition and phonics. And we're going to show this to you live today as well. This is what it looks like when it moves from the Google Sheets or the spreadsheets and the individual forms that they were using to the Clevr platform. And you're going to see today a lot of tabs where there are different screeners and different content. This is the Empower tab. and specifically the Empower 5 or 2 to 5. And so here's a date picker, another date picker where I'm recording my pre and my post. But then the difference here is auto calculated on the fly once the post assessment is input. Here's another one of the forms, and we'll look at this in a lot more detail. But the past form, there's Form A, Form B, Form C, and Form D. And really looking at some really sound pedagogical phonics and early literacy assessment gathering that informs some next steps around the instruction. There's also some auto calculating happening here in that it's tracking within the form the highest correct level and the levels not yet passed. So previously a fair bit of manual work was required to really organize that. And we've built the algorithms within the Clevr platform to do this on the fly for the teachers. And one other form that we're going to highlight today, just to point out the way this one's set up. So again, 3 forms, all following the same logic, Form A, Form B, and Form C. Question 1 aligns with word awareness. But what happens here is as the individual teacher selects one of these check marks, it auto-populates the number here, and they can make a comment around what the student said versus what they should have said. Or I can select all, which auto-populates all 5 of these, and I can deselect the one that the student didn't get correct. And here's one more phonics screener laid out in a pre, mid, and post. And we're going to take a closer look at this when we go live in the demo. Once the data is all captured on a Clevr form, it is available real time as soon as the data entry is completed. And this is a picture of a dashboard in Clevr. And here are some reports that are available. And as I click on one of these reports, up pops the output. So here's that class list, the spreadsheet that's auto-populated, auto-generated, and there's a bit of a heat map view of where the students are, whether they are at the beginning, developing, or at the mastery level, all aligned to the logic behind the scenes that the Hastings team gave us to lay out these patterns. And there's another result, and we've only populated the content here for Emily. None of these students have content yet, which is why it's blank. One other form that we have built within the Clevr platform this year, working with 2 other Ontario districts, the Avon-Maitland district and the Peterborough Victoria Northumberland Catholic district, is around the English language learners. And people are aware of the STEPS documentation with the continuums of observable language and literacy behaviors from all the various grades. This is what we used in collaboration with those 2 districts to build out the Clevr form, which has everything from the initial assessment continuum, ESL and the ELD. All the continuums are built into the Clevr form. And what happens is if I go into reading grades 1 to 3 and choose a level, it highlights the date that this step level was chosen. And if I highlight a new level, it'll keep track of the date that this step was achieved, but it will always highlight the most recent level. So we'll take a look at this potentially today as well when we go live. So as we were working through this journey with the Hastings and Prince Edward team around the language acquisition screening tools, we're all aware of the recent report that came out on February the 28th around the right to read. And this language acquisition solution is very much aligned to the science of reading. And just going to take a minute to talk about this. Dave, do you want to just align the work that we've done with the recent report that came out?
Sure. Thanks, Darryl. So as we know, school boards in Ontario and across Canada were working away at their early literacy solutions. And the Ontario Human Rights Commission, since in 2019, had been hearing some complaints in Ontario from families that they felt that the children were not learning to read effectively and they were not learning to read early enough. So they had their commission travel the province and they listened to stakeholders from all different groups, and they released their report. And some very clear things that were put in the report about needing a science-based approach to reading instruction. And then one of their other main themes was having data collected from screening tools that can be used both for individual, classroom, and school board planning. So those are key pieces. And, you know, the Clevr solution aligns beautifully with what just very recently came out with the OHRC report. And some of the specific recommendations that they came out with, you can see align exceptionally well with what we're already doing with the district working with, because several of them were talking about the precision, working specifically with individual students, and needing interventions that were based on the science of reading, and all the ones that we're using are clearly aligned with the science of reading. So the OHRC just gives further credibility to the work that we're doing in Clevr.
Awesome, thanks. So why don't we dive in and take a tour? And we've set up a bit of a sandbox. I'm going to log in to that sandbox. I'll spell it properly eventually. Assessment tools. When you land in Clevr, there are a variety of dashboards that you can land on. This is one example dashboard where I'm looking at this listings card. So here I have the literacy data form selected as my default. I'm on Bayview School. This is a sandbox environment. So even though we're going to be talking about early literacy screeners, the students in this sandbox just happen to be grade 12, 11, and 10 students. But that's just sandbox data set here. So, and as I kind of cruise through, I could jump over to another form. Maybe I'll go down to the numeracy form. And here are the students that are tied to that numeracy form. Or if I were to look at the ESL, ELD learners form that we showed the screenshots on the slide deck, 2 students in the school are tied to that. I'm going to go back to the literacy form. Over here, we have a metrics card that shows you can have required fields on a form. And this is telling me that there are 23 records at this school and 14 of them are yet to be completed, while 9 of them are complete. And one of the students is currently sitting at an unsatisfactory or limited comprehension level. So I'm going to jump in and just take a look at Emily here as a student. And as I land in here, there's general information tab. All Clevr forms have general information that comes from the student information system. So whether it's Aspen or Assembly or PowerSchool, that information populates the information here. And then you go ahead and you record additional data sets on the other forms. So the way this one's designed, there are a few tabs which show the different screeners. I'm going to ask Dave to talk a little bit about these specific screeners and some of the components of those.
Sure thing. So if we start with the phonics screener, you can see that in this particular case, this particular school district designed their own phonics screener. They have some references down at the bottom. And if your particular district wanted to insert your own, if you have one, an early literacy screener that you wanted to use designed around phonics, you could. But in this case, they have it designed in the pre-phonics screener so that they have things like high utility consonants, and they do some assessments around that. They do short vowels, they do everything from digraphs and diphthongs. So they have questions that ask the student, and they have them all put in there. They have a pre-phonics screener, a mid-year, and a late year, so they can actually do it 3 times a year, as you can see. And then they also have, yeah, so that would be, you know, early in the year, middle of the year, and later on in the year. And down at the bottom, they also have letter recognition. Those are some of the uppercase and lowercase. That's what they have built in. And as you can see, the scoring, you can do either a select all if a student was doing really well, and then unselect if there was just 1 or 2 where the student was having trouble with, or as you went along, the educator could actually click one or the other. So there's just a whole series of assessments there, the spot for the educator to take notes as well, if there's something of value that they want to put in there. General observations at the bottom. can also be filled in, and then all of that data gets scored and recorded right in there as part of the scoring sample. And then that relates then to the printout that Darryl was showing earlier, actual class.
Yeah, so if I go back to the dashboard, there's the printout icon. And if I want to print that pre-phonics screener, it shows that heat map of where those students are according to the data that we've just collected, the list of students who are in my class.
And the nice part about that is I have instant information right there in front of me about which students need which supports at what time, right? So that helps me as the educator pedagogically about whether I'm doing, you know, a whole class piece, whether I'm doing an intervention with a small group of students, whether other is coming into support of my classroom doing, or students are receiving whatever level of tiered intervention that they need. So the EPAS is also one of the screeners that's there. And in this particular case, it's designed around Form A, Form B, and Form C. So this is a phonological awareness screener tool. It's the phonological awareness skill screener. It's the PASS, very well known and very well used in many Ontario districts and across Canada and North America. And in this particular case, the questions are right built in, the instructions for the educator, what they say, the student gets the responses. Again, they can select all if the student is getting many of the answers correct versus doing it. And as they complete, the scoring is right there, total instantly. And right again, as soon as that particular student is done, you can see, you can put in your comments, and towards the end, again, it can be done several times over the course of the year, and the questions are not the same. They change. That way, it's not always the same, doing the same questions over and over and over again, because sometimes students with good memories can answer the questions just based on that. Put in your date picker of whenever you are in the year. So it's works so well for the teacher to complete the assessments in a timely way. And this is the past. This is the one that's in Dr. David Kilpatrick's book, Equipped for Reading Success. This one's a bit more comprehensive and oftentimes done at a team level. And again, this is one that has Form A, Form B, Form C, and Form D. And you can see how this one is done and set up. So the scoring is there instantly for you. And it has a whole series of sub-skills in phonological awareness that are being assessed, whether that's syllabification, onset and rhyme, blends, initial consonants, ending consonants, right? So it takes you through those different areas, and the assessment is completed. And again, it shows you right there, even in this space, without needing to look at what the scores and which areas might need some interventions versus where the students are actually doing well. And in this particular one, Darryl, just before we jump to another one, you can see that different districts set the assessments up in different ways. So this past assessment, for example, by this district in Ontario is designed this way, where the very same assessment or the very same EPAS by another district in, I believe it's Manitoba, they set up their past assessment slightly differently. So there it is, right? And they're just doing theirs twice a year, fall, spring, with their date picker. So they took a bit of more simplified approach to how they would do it. So again, that's another unique thing for Clevr, is that you can design each of these literacy screeners in whatever way that you want to. So you can either take it as it's already designed by somebody else, or you can take it a little bit. Next one we could look at is Empower. So this particular district has Empower designed around early years, middle years, and high school years. Potentially, you could have a student right up into secondary that was still struggling with reading and needing some support. Could be done there. And that's the way that they have it designed, the same assessment. And now let's flip back to an Ontario district and take a look at how they actually have Empower.
Oh, that's the same one, sorry.
No problem. So in this case, the Hastings district has a different way of looking at it, but it records the pre, the post, and the difference. And I believe Darryl showed you this one a little bit earlier at the beginning, and one that's grayed out, but we also have it available as dibbles, which is great for word sound blending, and a great tool. So that's another opportunity. So, you know, there's a whole suite of tools, if you think about it, that can support, although it's a focus on an early literacy screener, can really support from K to 8, even beyond potentially.
Just show this live as well. We showed a screenshot of it, just how all the different grade levels with the different continuums. And as I mentioned earlier, if this student moves to step 3, it keeps track of the date that the student was at step 2, puts in a new date for step 3, and just the most recent step is the one that's highlighted. And then it's there for the ESL, all of the grades, all of the areas, same functionality. And also in the area of the observable language and literacy behaviors, same functionality in all of the areas, including the orientation to school life.
So that's a great tool and a great support, both for newcomers to Canada in any school district, and as well for any student whom either English is not their first language in school or at home, or they haven't had the opportunity of having much literacy development period, depending on their life circumstances before coming to Ontario or to Canada.
I'll just highlight this one briefly, Dave. Yeah, thanks.
Sure. So this is a great numeracy form tool. It's also been designed by the Hastings Prince Edward District, and this is designed around the new curriculum, which was recently released. Love so many things about it, but it's right. It's a tool that can be used from K to 8. It's linked to the new curriculum expectations, and it's, as you can see, there's the tabs for the major sections or the major overall arching themes by grade, and then there's also you can do a pre and a post, different times of the year. The tasks are set up for you, and then it's also linked to other supports. If you can see other links there that show you both the curriculum itself and a support document to give you ideas. And one thing that's really neat is, as we know, we've been on some virtual learning experiences with the pandemic, and we even have Jamboards built in, so that way if some of these assessments could even be done virtually, because it can take you, so that way every single manipulative that you would use as a virtual manipulative can be used with the students in a virtual format as well. So you can complete this assessment whether you're in-person learning. So if you had students that were still on, attending school virtually, they can still participate as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Dave. So I think that's a wrap. We'll call it there. We wanted to take up 20-ish minutes of your time. We may have been a little bit over, but thanks for spending a little bit of time with us today. And if you are interested in more details, I have Dave and my emails here, as well as a phone number. Feel free to contact us. And yeah, it's been an exciting project with a few districts that we've been working with, and a few more have signed up recently, and we're looking forward to continuing to work with them. So thanks everybody for your time.
Look forward to hearing from you. Bye-bye.